All right, let's see. We did this one, got it, done. This one covered, this one. Wait, are we on the last one? Holy sh! Last fold in the series, and if I didn't stress this enough in the last video, guys, this is going to be the fold where you really want to know how to do all the other folds that we did in the previous weeks, because they're all involved in this one. So this is the inert fold. It's also called the dead fold. You can also call it the inactive fold. Whatever you want to call it, it basically just means whatever kind of fabric it is. It could be pants, it could be a shirt, it could be a blanket, it could be cloth. It doesn't matter. If it's just dead on the ground, laying there, lifeless, flat, it can be draped over something, whatever it is, that is an inert fold. So inert folds are kind of hard because you guys can see, I mean, look at these examples. They're all vastly different from each other. So they have a sporadic look to them. So this makes it hard, but this also makes it work to our advantage. Because essentially, where I could judge your zigzag fold, I could judge your pipe fold, I could, do whatever it is. I could say that doesn't look like a pipe fold. I can't exactly say your inert fold is wrong necessarily, because it's all sporadic and you'll never get the same inert fold no matter how you make your setup. If that doesn't make sense, what I'm saying is, let's say you have a shirt, you threw it on the ground. Now, if you pick that shirt up and threw it on the ground, it doesn't matter if it lands in the same spot, you threw it up just as high, you threw it down just as hard, it's going to create a different pattern every time. So this is kind of something that can make it difficult, maybe a little confusing, but we can also use it to our advantage. This is where you can really play up the folds you want, play up the folds you see, but you don't have to go too crazy with them. So when you're looking for an inert fold, it's just really anything that has been placed onto a surface. Now, the curious characteristic about them is that they follow the surface that they're on. So if they're on a staircase like this example right here, they are going to go down and then down, and you're going to see that within the fabric, and the fabric is going to represent how it's falling. Similar here, I really like this example because it's nice and subtle, right? You see how it's just on like a subtle curved plane versus above where it's on this flat plane. So you don't see too heavily the difference, but you can see that this curve is reciprocated right here in the design of that fold. It still has to fold over the surface that it's on. And lastly, I like this example because it shows that all of these folds, they all exist within your inert folds. So again, if you guys haven't seen the videos of the past, I hate saying this stuff, I feel like a stupid YouTuber saying this, but please check them out. It's all going to come together. This is very much a connect the dots kind of method where you want to know all of them in order to master using them together, and in order to master this fold right here. So I want to show this example, specifically this one right down here, because just because it's called a dead fold or an inactive fold, it doesn't mean that it can't still be on a person. Wherever the fabric is being draped off of, if it is hitting the ground, in this example, the person's sitting, maybe they just have a really long gown or robe and it's on the ground. Whatever it is, if it has hit the earth, essentially, or whatever surface it's on, it becomes an inert fold. So just like her, she is sitting on the ground. Her dress has now become a part of inert folds. In here, you still see things like all these diaper folds, and you can see some zigzag folds going on, but the overall fold process that is happening is how the folds are on the ground, and they are creating a sporadic shape, so they are the inert fold. So looking at some artist examples here, I wanted to show this one just because I mentioned this a few times in some of the videos, but you can really see the difference that adding extra tone to your fabric does, right? So just sometimes you don't want to just stick with just white and gray. Sometimes if you come in with a little bit of tone, look how much more realistic of a texture we get, basically just because they added a slight medium tone to the whole fabric and then came back and darkened in from there. This is also a really good way, if you look at the example below, to kind of separate the contrast between one fabric and another fabric if you have two laying on top of each other, because it can seem really hard to show, hey, this is two pieces of cloth or blanket or whatever it is, if they don't have a different tone or texture to them. All right, here's how you make an inert fold in real life. You grab your shirt, just take it, and you do that. Inert fold. Starting this off, you know we gotta go drapery for these, right? But I just wanted to keep it nice and simple. So here we have a pretty simple, basic piece of cloth folded over some sort of a step or whatever this block is here. If you guys are drawing this with me, don't worry about the weird oblong shape of this block. Really just try to draw in where you see those edges right there. Otherwise, you guys don't really have to draw the shape in if you don't want to. We just kind of want to see where the object that it's being bent over, right, is in place. Otherwise, this whole thing is an inert fold. It's inert because it's literally laying down on an object, but it's important to realize that we have things coming into play here, like the object is wrapping around here, it's coming around and down here, so we want to see that bend, right? You can see in all this fabric where it bends, so we want to show that. And then right here where it boom hits the floor, you now get a bend going down that changes direction, right? Because this is making contact with the floor and it's not so much free hanging off of the block anymore. Pretty basic folds in here too. We're not seeing anything too crazy. You know, we have some drop folds right here, you know, which we know are just essentially a flattened pipe fold. You know, you get the pipe folds and stuff in here as well. Mostly pretty basic, right? Nothing too extreme. So again, inert folds, completely sporadic and random. So if there's folds in here you don't want to draw, that's completely fine. Just aim for the bigger picture. Let's give it a try. All right, so first thing first, we're gonna go in there and draw our shape, right? So it's just a block, guys. Don't get confused. I know it's this weird shape. I don't know why, but just go ahead and draw some sort of a block shape. Just make sure to draw 3 edges on the shape. So I just drew 3 lines. I'm remembering it's in perspective though, so these lines are not all going the same direction. They're not parallel with each other, right? Things do disappear in space regardless of the shape. So size it down a bit, and now I'm going to drape my fabric over. And since this is so simple, I'm really going to focus on sticking to the simple shapes at first, trying not to get bogged down with the little details just yet. I might do a few directional things here just so I can kind of connect the dots later, but overall I just want to kind of come up and make sure that I have the space I need. So I could see right here, before I got into too many details, that the box that I'm drawing on wasn't long enough, right? So I was able to come in and figure that out before I settled on interior details and fix that problem. Imagine if I did all that stuff in the middle and then I found that out, and it would have been a different situation. I would have been less happy, right? So, you know, I always emphasize, keep it simple, the best you can in the beginning. It'll always be the right way to go. You'll always be happier. Alright, once you have your basic shape though, which is, it's funny if you look at it, you know, it's basically sellable, right? You could have just had a flat piece of cloth over a block, but we know that's not the case, right? This fabric is folded over itself in different locations, and it's giving us these interesting pipe folds and other kind of fold situations in there in this inert fold scenario. So we're going to go in and play around with it. Now again, this is inert folds, and I'm going to keep saying this because I really want you guys to use this to your advantage. Don't worry so much about every single fold. Draw the ones you want. Draw the ones that you look at this and you think it's important. You can see here that mine technically is not the exact same proportions as the one I'm drawing, so I might add on to it a little bit, but at the same time, it doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, if I'm going to present this to someone, I'm not going to present it with the reference I used. So keep that in mind for when you guys are doing this, and make it look how you guys want. Everything here in the reference is just, well, it's just that. It's a reference, right? We got to use some of our artistic creativity, especially when it comes to inert folds, to kind of amplify our drawings a little bit. So I'm not going to do too many tonal studies in this. The inert fold drawings, especially after this one, they can be a little complicated. There's a lot of folds going on. I'm not going to lie to you guys, but so I didn't want to spend too much time doing tonal stuff. So I might throw in a few shades here or there where there's a lot of dark shadow. But this is definitely one where if you guys have the time to go in there and lay down that initial tone and then come in with your shadows, and then you can erase out some highlights, especially when it bends around the corner, you guys are going to have a really, really nice looking drapery study on this one. All right, so still finalizing my details here. I'm just kind of thinking about areas of where the folds are, what I want to really signify. You can see that piece that I just drew. It's nice and folded over again on itself. So because it's folded over again, it's a little stiffer. It holds together a little better, so it's not actually bending as freely as the rest of the fabric. So something to think about too, right? Not only fabric changes the way material bends, but also how much fabric can be rolled up on itself can also change the way it acts as well. So some final details here. I just kind of need to get this last pipe fold that we see in here. It's creating a nice arching pipe fold in there. And then we got our shadow planes down there. And get a nice shade in. Do as I say, not as I do, so much, where a lot of the shading that I'm doing on this one is very, very quick and sketchy. I would say you could probably take a little more time. And I'm just going to clean up some of my underdrawing there, and then we're going to move on to the next. So moving on to a little more of a difficult inert fold here. We have what is a simulated picture of Obi-Wan's robes on the floor from Star Wars, if you guys have seen that movie. Now, this is a great example because, you know, you might be wondering, well, when would I even use inert fold?
Your swords bleed.
And your lust for power have already done that.
So it happens a lot when you are drawing. You could be comic books, storyboarding, you could have a character with robes or a cape or a long dress. Anything where you're gonna have a gown or some sort of fabric that is hitting the ground, you're gonna have inert folds. And often we do this in our characters. We give them really long flowy capes and stuff like that to make them look heroic and cool and dramatic, whatever it is. So these often come up in your drawings. Now, these are kind of storytelling elements, right? Here you just have a robe that's placed on the floor and we have the lightsaber on top. It's telling a story of this is someone's fallen robes, right? If you know anything about Star Wars, this means even more to you, right? It signifies an important move point in the scene. But even if you look at a regular scene from Star Wars, where, you know, we don't have such a dramatic shot, even right here and right here, where the folds are just kind of right there against the ground, even though that we know that he's going to be moving probably in the next scene or so, you can even see it right here hitting the floor. These are inert folds for the moment that they're on the ground. They have become dead, inactive, whatever you want to call it. They're inert. Now, when you first look at this, it probably looks a little complicated. There's a lot going on. We have a whole bunch of zigzags and half locks, and you got the hood over here and stuff keeping and blah, 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 right? I can go on and on with how complicated this is, but that's not going to help us. What we need to understand is a couple things. First, we have our basic shape. And if you guys can see, this pretty much fell together in a square. Obviously, it doesn't fit exactly in the square, but that's kind of what we're seeing on the ground, is a little bit of a pulled apart square. Once you find that, you guys can go in and maybe kind of define your silhouette a little bit. So we want to have the outside of this shape, kind of like if you're doing a puzzle where you find the outside border first, and then it can kind of help you figure out what's on the inside a little bit easier. And then from there, the main thing we're going to try to focus on for this one is I really want you guys to just do the folds that are essential. By essential, I mean the big ones, the ones that tell a story. So like obviously this is one nice big fold coming over here, and then this fold leads into what can help us identify this hood over here, right? So we do want to see that because it kind of helps us know it's a robe. Generally anywhere where you see a nice big fold, I would go for that one. When you get into a section like this and you have all these folds coming around and this way and that way, not all of those are necessary. So pick and choose, draw the big ones, and then if you feel like after you drew the big ones you don't necessarily need the small ones to back up your information, leave them out. It's completely up to you guys. Inert folds, again, broken record here, but they're completely sporadic. If someone picked up this robe and dropped it on the ground again, it would be a completely different looking folds. So use that to your advantage. Don't let something that looks complex fool you when you can use it to your advantage and cheat it however you want. Okay, so starting this off, I'm gonna start with that square shape. It just definitely helps you kind of set it onto a plane, and the plane here is being this person's floor that they set up this scene with, right? So I set it down on the square, and then now what I'm doing is I'm just kind of blocking in the silhouette. Again, it does not have to be exact. This robe can fall a million different ways onto the floor, so if it doesn't come out exact, don't worry about it so much, right? Have it be bigger and bulkier in some parts, have it be smaller in some other parts. Completely up to you. Now, as I'm making this shape, I'm just kind of noting some of the folds and edges that I see right there along the side. Sometimes when you're making the silhouette, it's really hard not to just go in and add in those details. But again, you guys know from my past videos, I have a lot of trouble ignoring details when I'm trying to do the simple drawing. So that's another reason that I like to throw in something like that square first, because the silhouette, I can see the folds in there, right? I can see the object I'm drawing, so I can get distracted. But obviously the object I'm drawing is not a square, so it's a lot harder for me to get distracted if I just have a square on the paper. So coming in and finishing a little bit of our silhouette here. So I'm deciding what is important to me in this drawing. I like these little parts where the fabric kind of tails out here. I don't know what those are. This could be the bottom of the robe, whatever. I just think it looks nice. It kind of really sells the point of this is a dropped inert fold. Otherwise, the only thing I really care about in here is the fact that however this fell, for whatever reason, I can tell that the bottom right is the hood of this robe. So for me, my goal would be, how can I sell that? How can I accomplish that feeling of it being the hood, right? If you care about Star Wars and you're trying to make this look like something from Star Wars, that would probably be your goal too, is to make that look like the Jedi robe hood. Otherwise, if you guys don't care about Star Wars, it's just still a good study to work on, because it's just a fallen piece of fabric, which, as you guys saw in my example video earlier, that's what inert folds are, and you can do it with literally anything. All right, so just kind of joining in sections of where the folds really come in and where you can see things bending over themselves. Just kind of going back to my basic principles here of what I always think about when I'm drawing. What is overlapping what? And what is the bigger, more important story here? So it's really easy to get stuck in these like little zigzag loops that are going all around. What you're going to find is if you go into that trap without having some sort of anchor points being the bigger folds of your picture, you're going to find that you went way too long or way too small or way too short with those zigzags, and you're going to have to erase all that detail that you just put effort in. So, you know, I know it sounds silly, but the connect the dot method really works well. So where you have one section, so like you could say the top left of this fabric, and then I draw the bottom fold, and then I can see the zigzag literally going visually from one fold to the other, and then I fit it in between those two folds. Try not to just draw the top, draw the zigzag down, and then draw that big bottom fold that's overlapping, because I mean, you know, you're not always going to be wrong when you do that, but there's just a high chance of making a mistake when you do that I would say it's just easier enough to avoid, right? If you can avoid a mistake, even if you know you might not make it, I would always just go for the option to avoid the mistake. So here I kind of sped up a little bit because, well, I got some of the bigger, bulkier folds, and so I took my time. I was going very slow on that, the silhouette, the important parts of the detail. And now I just kind of wanted to come in and add in the residual details of the little folds. I decided to throw the lightsaber in. You guys don't have to if you don't want to, but what's happening in the center of that fabric is it's all kind of being pulled off of there. The weight of the lightsaber onto the cloth. You can see the cloth is kind of like wrapping around it a little bit. So I thought that was a fun little element, and kind of gives a little more story to your picture, and it gives a little more volume to the dimensions of these folds in here. Now again, this would be a really great study with some tone on it, but again, we got a lot to cover here, so I won't be throwing on tone in there, but I do encourage you guys to do it if you want to and you have the time. I want to say sorry that I had to speed this up so fast. So this is just a quick gesture drawing. Personally, I really love this whole picture. You don't have to do what I'm doing. That was basically what I'm saying, which is why I kind of justified speeding it up. You really just need the bottom. I wouldn't even say bottom half. You just need the bottom quarter of this drawing. Maybe a little bit of an indication of where her feet are. But if you guys are at all interested, of course, this workshop is about drawing clothed figures, so it's kind of important to me. And in terms of dynamic poses and how fabric reacts to tension points and everything, this is such a beautiful picture to copy from. There's just so much going on, but I just kind of wanted to say I'm sorry I had to speed up this gesture process just because the video is getting pretty long. There's too much to cover in this. I'm sorry, but definitely, if you guys have the time, pause on this video and give it a shot yourself. Gesture drawing is just a quick gestural drawing of a figure. You can see here it's not super beautiful, it's not super accurate, but I just kind of drew in an indication of it. So now we're on to the fabric, so I can slow it down a little bit. And really what I want to do is I just want to play up where the fabric is interacting with the body a little bit. How does that affect the inert folds, you might be wondering? Well, what's happening up top, not heavily, because there's so much fabric. If there was less fabric, then obviously what's happening on top would be affecting how much inert folds are on the ground. But since there's like a giant sheet that she's wrapped in, and there's so much excess on the floor, you just have two parts of her body that are affecting it, and that's where her feet are touching the ground. You can see the sheets are kind of wrapped under her toes a bit, which is making the sheets really tight on her body. Now from here, I'm drawing it on the ground, and I want to be really clear here that I'm saying I'm just looking for the big overall sweeping folds. You can see the fabric is kind of circling around her. So she probably put this on and she maybe like twirled around or something like that, right? Because it looks like there's a little bit of a twist going on. So realistically, that's the story. That's the whole story of the inert fold. There's a little bit of a twist going on. So I just kind of need to show that by some of those lines in the back there on the left that I drew. I have some of the ones in the front. They're circling around her. And now I'm just kind of thinking about what the fabric is doing right underneath her, right? That's where the fabric has most of its weight and it really gathers up. Everything else is pretty much a sheet flat on the ground, so I don't need to do that too much. Be careful here where I just made this mistake. Sometimes when fabric is going off on its own, it's easy to make it too big. So you'll see I'll come in here and fix that in a second, right there. And it looks much more realistic. Now I don't see too much going off on the side of the page, but remember, inert folds are completely random. So that means as long as I go in there and draw something completely random, you guys can see right here, it looks realistic. All right, now we are moving on to the lady in the red dress. I want to apologize. I absolutely hate this pose so much. It was just on like some website for like wherever they sell this dress. I don't know. I just think it's such a gimmicky pose, which is why I'm not drawing the full figure for this one. But I'm just going to draw in an indication of the bottom half of the leg. So I'm talking about from the knee down. because you do have little factors that you need to think about here. The fact that she is up on high heels does give her dress a little more lift, therefore we have less fabric on the ground, and you also get a little bit more of a smoother transition of where the fabric starts to roll to the ground. So for me, it was important detail to add in there. You don't have to go into detail and draw the toes and everything like that, but I just want to draw a little indication of the leg. If you guys want to stick with the cylinder shapes that we were using in the first couple weeks of videos, you're more than welcome to do that too. So anyways, really quick gestural drawing, not trying to spend too much time on her leg for this one. What I'm thinking of here is I want to keep this as simple as possible. Now, the reason that inert folds are really useful is because they do have a story element to them. What does that mean? How does fabric or cloth or folds have story to them? Well, in other folds, it tells you where the tension points are. It can tell you if someone is moving their body, the lines will kind of correlate to that. And in this one, you can see that they're just trailing behind her a little bit. She walked into this scene, right? So we know that if we were to use this in a comic situation, you know, we're drawing Cinderella in a giant ball gown and she's leaving the ballroom. Well, we're not going to have her dressed to the side of her or in front of her, right? We're going to have it draped behind her on the stairs that she's running up to get out of the ballroom. And in those scenes, in each one of those individual scenes, where the cloth is hitting the ground is inert folds. So we always want to think that, although they're called dead and inactive folds, it's kind of a mistake to call them that because they have so much story to them. So make sure to add in that story element. And the most important use of inert folds is being wrapped in a blanket like a burrito, much like our pug friend here is doing. I'm drawing the pug's face. If you guys aren't, I don't know if we can be friends. I mean, how can you avoid drawing a cute, grumpy, old man looking pug face? But anyways, so just go ahead and get your drawing in there of the pug. And we're just going to wrap him in a blanket. We really don't have any indication of his body here. So you don't have to worry too much about that. This kind of helps us stay with our nice simple shapes. And we can move on from there. So I got him in his head, and I'm just going to kind of lower that down and move him up so I have plenty of room to drape the fabric down. If you guys are wondering what makes this an inert fold, right? I don't know if this is getting confusing because I'm showing so many drawing different situations here. The fact that he's not moving and the fact that there's excess fabric bigger than his body and it is on whatever that is, the couch, the bed, whatever he's sitting on, it's inert. It's not in motion. Even if he got up in the next second and started moving and broke out of the blanket, the second before that this picture was taken, everything was inactive and not moving, and it was an inert fold. That's all it is. That's how you know if you're drawing an inert fold. And then, of course, they're just built of every other fold that we've learned, but it's just called an inert fold. I'm sorry if I'm repeating this information too much, but, you know, this is just, it's a complicated drawing. It's a complicated fold to explain, but I just kind of want to make sure you guys understand it and get it, because it's something that I think you might not think you're going to use, but you might use it more than you think. So we're just coming in here. I kept it nice and simple. You guys, honestly, if I pulled out right now, this would be plenty good, plenty of information here. You know he's wrapped in a blanket. You know it trails off to the side. It's bigger than him. So this would be an example of when you can stop detailing. You don't need to add any more, but I felt like, why not keep adding a little bit more detail to this guy? So I just went in there and kind of added a few more things. You know, I kind of wanted to show some of these half-lock folds being captured in here and some of these zigzags. So just to add a little detail for my own personal preference here. We made it, guys. We got through every single fold I had in the book. thank you so much for watching again. I'm really sorry if this was confusing, but these are just kind of something that you have to practice. And again, inert folds are something where it's different every time. So I can't give you every scenario, but I hope this really helped you put some scenarios together on your own. As always, thank you for watching. What we're going to be doing next week is we're going to look at all these folds that we did, and we're going to just look up pictures of clothed figures, so male figures, female figures, whatever it is. I'm going to find some interesting outfits, and then we're just going to draw them. It's going to be a straight up figure drawing session, so have your sketchbooks ready. All right, guys, again, thank you for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.